It was a typical dull Friday afternoon in geometry class, with the weekend just within reach. The anticipation of spring break made the atmosphere almost electric, as everyone was mentally checking out. Our teacher, known for being easygoing, decided to play a quiz game on Sporkle since there was no test scheduled, unlike in some of our other classes. As we huddled around our laptops, the classroom buzzed with excitement, each student eager to showcase their knowledge of random trivia. I remember the exact moment when the mood shifted from lighthearted fun to bone-chilling terror. My friend had just correctly identified the night logo, and we were all laughing when the loudspeaker crackled to life. The principal's voice, normally calm and composed, was strained with urgency. "This is not a drill. I repeat, this is not a drill. All teachers initiate lockdown procedures immediately." A cold wave of fear washed over me as I saw our usually laid-back teacher's face turn a color. He quickly snapped off the lights and motioned for us to move to the back corner of the room. We sat there in tense silence, the room now eerily dark. The usual hum from the old air conditioning unit had stopped. The sudden quiet was unnerving, and I could see the anxiety on everyone's faces as we all tried to make sense of what was happening. Then, out of nowhere, we heard it. Someone was screaming in the hallway, a sound that sent shivers down my spine. The voice was wild, unhinged, and filled with an anger that made my heart pound. The sound of metal slamming against metal echoed through the corridor as the man outside began pounding on lockers, his screams promising violence. "I'll kill every last one of you," he howled. Two girls near me began to cry, their soft sobs only adding to the mounting dread. The lunatic's footsteps grew louder as he neared our door, and I felt the air thicken with fear. Then came the banging, a relentless assault on the door that separated us from the maniac outside. "Open up," he roared, slamming his fists against the door. The door rattled under the force of his blows, and it felt as though at any moment it might give way. My mind raced with terrifying thoughts, each worse than the last. One of the girls who had been crying suddenly screamed, her voice filled with sheer panic, and the man outside responded with renewed fury, hammering the door even harder. Time seemed to slow down as we all sat there, paralyzed with fear. My thoughts drifted to my family, and I wondered if I would ever see them again. The tension in the room was suffocating, and the faint sobbing of my classmates only made it worse. The seconds felt like hours, each one stretching out in agonizing anticipation. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, every beat echoing in my ears as the man continued his assault on the door. It felt like an eternity, but eventually the pounding stopped, and the screams faded as the man moved down the hall, still shouting incoherently. Minutes felt like hours until finally the principal's voice came back on the loudspeaker, attempting to reassure us. He explained that an unstable individual had managed to enter the school and had assaulted a staff member at the front desk. The woman had escaped, but the whereabouts of the intruder were still unknown. The teachers were instructed to continue with the lockdown, but the tension in the room was palpable. As the minutes ticked by, we all sat in a terrified silence, unsure of what to do or say. The reality of the situation was slowly sinking in, and it was clear that this was no ordinary lockdown drill. The normally cheerful classroom now felt like a prison, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible was about to happen. Later, we learned from rumors circulating among the students that the man had been found by a janitor during his rounds later that night, hiding in a storage closet. According to the whispers, the man had a revolver tucked into his waistband, though the police arrived too late to apprehend him. To this day, I don't know what happened to that man, but I can only hope he's getting the help he desperately needs. The next day, the school was eerily quiet. The usual chatter and laughter in the hallways were replaced by hushed whispers and nervous glances. It was as if the entire school was holding its breath, waiting for something else to happen. Teachers tried their best to keep things normal, but it was clear that everyone was still on edge. In the weeks that followed, extra security measures were put in place. New locks were installed on all the doors, and a security guard was stationed at the entrance. But no matter what changes were made, the fear and uncertainty from that day lingered in the back of everyone's mind. It was a reminder that even in a place where we felt safe, danger could still find us. At my middle school, the day was gray and gloomy, the kind of day that makes you want to stay under the covers. It was the first lunch period, the time slot reserved for sixth graders and half of the seventh grade. The cafeteria was loud with the usual chatter and noise, kids excited to break free from their classes. The day had been dragging on, and I was looking forward to the end of it. Suddenly, four loud bangs echoed through the cafeteria, causing an immediate hush to fall over the room. For a moment, I thought it was just thunder, but the panic that spread across the faces of the other students told me otherwise. Some kids screamed, and the campus security guards, who usually stood at the doors looking bored, sprang into action, shouting at everyone to move into the multipurpose room. Even those who were in line for lunch had to abandon their food and hurry inside. The multipurpose room, where we often had assemblies, was massive. The back wall was made entirely of glass, offering a view of the school grounds, but as soon as we were inside, the staff pulled the heavy curtains across the windows, blocking out the outside world. Adults stood at every exit, their faces grim, as if bracing for something terrible. My friend Lucas was as curious as the rest of us. He nudged me and whispered, "What do you think's going on?" Before I could answer, he slipped away to ask one of the teachers who was standing guard. When he came back, his face was pale, and his voice dropped to a whisper. "You know those houses right across from the school?" he asked. I nodded. "Well, apparently, there's a guy living in one of them who's lost it. He's outside, waving a gun around, threatening to shoot anyone who comes near. And get this, he's a registered sex offender." My heart sank. The thought of someone like that being so close was terrifying. We were kept in the multipurpose room for over an hour, 2 whole periods of just sitting there, scared and confused. The minutes dragged on, each one feeling longer than the last. Every creak and noise outside made us jump, our imaginations running wild with possibilities. The fear of the unknown was suffocating, and I could see the anxiety on everyone's faces as we waited for something, anything, to happen. When it was finally over, we were escorted back to our classrooms in small groups, and I felt a strange sense of relief just being out of that room. The normalcy of the classroom was a stark contrast to the tension of the multipurpose room, but the fear still lingered in the back of my mind. Later, I found out that the man lived next door to a friend of mine, Jenna. She told me that last Halloween, she had seen him standing at his window, cutting his arm and smearing the blood on the glass. He had written something in his own blood, something like, "Stay away or I'll kill you." At the time, Jenna thought it was just some creepy Halloween prank, but now, after everything that had happened, we realized how dangerous he truly was. It's scary to think that someone so disturbed was living so close, and I'm just glad we were all kept safe that day. In the days that followed, the story spread like wildfire through the school. Every student had a version of the tale, each one more embellished than the last. Some claimed the man had a history of violence, others swore they had seen him lurking around the school before. The rumors fed into our fear, and the truth became harder to separate from fiction. Despite the added security measures and the reassurances from teachers and parents, the sense of safety we once had was shattered. The thought that someone so dangerous could be living just a few blocks away was a constant source of anxiety. Even now, whenever I walk past that house, I can't help but feel a chill run down my spine. After finishing college, I landed a job at my old high school as an IT assistant. It felt strange to be back, but it was a job, and the pay was decent. The school's basement had been converted into a tech hub of sorts, cluttered with outdated computers and wires, but our office was a small oasis amid the chaos. The office was cozy, with just enough space for 3 desks, a couple of mini fridges, and a flat-screen TV. The air conditioning was a blessing, especially during the sweltering summer months when the rest of the school felt like an oven. My coworkers, Ryan and Mark, weren't around that day, leaving me alone in the basement. I was enjoying a quiet lunch break, halfway through my sandwich, when I got a call from the main office. The secretary's voice was tense as she informed me that the school was on lockdown. "There's a possible intruder," she said, "and he might be armed." Panic surged through me. Our office didn't even have a proper door, just a wide opening that led into the rest of the basement, and the basement door itself had a broken lock. There was no real way to secure myself in. I quickly turned off the lights and sat in the dark, trying to stay calm. I texted Ryan and Mark, but neither of them responded. I was completely in the dark, both literally and figuratively, about what was happening upstairs. Minutes dragged on, and I could feel the tension building inside me. Then, the basement door creaked open, the sound sending my heart racing. Someone was coming down the stairs, their footsteps echoing in the stillness. I ducked under my desk, holding my breath, praying that whoever it was would leave. The footsteps grew louder as they approached the office. I could hear the person's breathing, the quiet rustle of clothing. My phone suddenly buzzed with a new text, and the sound seemed deafening in the silence. The footsteps stopped right next to my desk, and I felt a surge of fear like I'd never known before. Then a hand reached down and grabbed my arm, pulling me up. I found myself face to face with a man in a red plaid shirt, jeans, and a baseball cap. He didn't seem threatening, but there was something off about him. "It's okay," he whispered. "I'm just hiding down here too. What's happening upstairs?" I hesitated before answering, but he didn't seem to notice. Instead, he asked if there was another way out of the basement. I pointed toward the back door, and he nodded, but something about the way he asked made me uneasy. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. He paused, as if weighing his words carefully before telling me that he had come to pick up his child when a teacher had warned him about the intruder. But something didn't add up. I quickly checked my phone, and my blood ran cold. The text was from Ryan. "Dude, stay where you are. Some guy shot Mr. Logan. He's wearing a red plaid shirt. Don't come upstairs." I looked up at the man, realizing with horror that he was the shooter. My mind raced, trying to think of a way out. Without warning, I bolted toward the stairs, hoping against hope that I could outrun him. A gunshot rang out behind me, the sound deafening in the confined space, but I didn't stop. I flew up the stairs and burst through the door into the main hallway. Police officers were already there, and as I reached the top of the stairs, they stormed past me, heading straight for the basement. They caught the man just as he tried to escape through the back exit. Thankfully, Mr. Logan survived the shooting, though he was badly injured. The whole thing was surreal, like something out of a nightmare. I'll never forget the sound of that gunshot, and I know that the memory of that day will haunt me for the rest of my life. In the weeks that followed, the school became a different place. What was once a safe and familiar environment now felt tainted by the memory of that day. I found it hard to focus on my work, my mind constantly replaying the events over and over. The office, once a refuge from the chaos of the school, now felt like a prison, the walls closing in on me as I struggled to move past what had happened. The sound of footsteps approaching the office, a creaking door, even the buzz of my phone, all of it sent me spiraling back to that moment under the desk. The fear, the panic, the realization that I was face to face with a man capable of taking a life. It was all too much. I tried to tell myself that it was over, that I was safe, but the fear lingered, a shadow that followed me wherever I went. Eventually, I decided I couldn't stay at the school any longer. The memories were too raw, the fear too overwhelming. I resigned from my position and moved to a different city, hoping that a change of scenery would help me heal. But even now, in a new place, the memories of that day haunt me. The sound of that gunshot, the look in the man's eyes as he realized I knew who he was. It's something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life. Love creepy stories? Subscribe now and turn on notifications so you never miss a new one.